Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. We are doing more hockey content today ahead of our hockey live stream on Monday where we're talking all things NHL playoffs and the like here. We are going to do a tier list today though. I was kind of hesitant to make this video just because I can, if you've seen my MLB one, you know my backstory with baseball. I've been to almost all of the MLB ballparks. I also made one with NFL stadiums, and then I'm going to have to upload it because the audio was corrupted. And NHL, I've been to about half of them, but I wasn't sure how to make a tier list on a whole bunch of arenas that I haven't necessarily been to. So what I'm going to do is the ones that I haven't been to of the NHL arenas that are on this list, I'm going off of what the fans say about it, what the community says about it, and make my own adjustments from an architectural standpoint, from a fan perspective, and what I understand about the fan bases and these arenas that we're talking about today. But standard tier list S through F, we have 32 arenas in the NHL, and we are going to place every single one as best we can. If you agree, if you disagree in the comments, let me know below. But otherwise, we're just going to blaze straight through this thing. So first, it's going to start in alphabetical order, and then it's going to get a little all over the place. I don't know how these pictures implanted themselves in the list here, but we'll start with the American Airlines Center in Dallas. This is the home of both the Dallas Stars and the Dallas Mavericks basketball team. I will say, as a precursor, eventually I'll probably do an NBA arenas tier list as well, and I just want to say that some of them might be out of order, and that has to do everything with the fan base, so less so about the arenas. If you're wondering why a certain arena was ranked higher than another one in a hockey list but lower in a basketball list, it's mostly to do with the fan experience based on each team. But for now, we're focusing on the American Airlines Center as a hockey venue. So I'm going to solidly put this in B tier. I might actually put it in A tier. Gorgeous arena. It's kind of, I wouldn't say the heart of Dallas, but right as you come into downtown Dallas, right on the fringe downtown there, it's got this cool plaza around it that they built for big events like watch parties. They were kind of the first of those late 90s, early 2000s venues to do that, where they build kind of this community area around the arena. It's got this cool look. It's like a cross airplane hangar where it's almost like a domed ceiling in both directions and it intersects in the middle, which adds kind of this cavernous feel on the inside, but the fans seem to fill it up really well for both basketball and hockey. You know what? I will put it bottom of A tier. I think despite the product that the Stars put on the ice, and this year, the year that I'm recording this, they're actually doing really well and the fan base responds. But Dallas is one of the few southern cities that seems to do really well with hockey. And I think that this stadium, this venue provides really well for the team and the fan base at hand. I think it's a great venue for all of the sports that it hosts, not just hockey. So moving on now to Amalie Arena in Tampa. This is the former, I can't remember what they called it when it was open, but you might also know it as the Tampa Bay Times Forum or the St. Pete's Times Forum. It's right on that kind of, I don't know what you call it. It's off of Tampa Bay. There's like this little river or harbor thing that it's obviously salt water, but it's kind of this, I don't even know how to describe it. If you're familiar with the geography of Tampa, you'd know, but it's basically right off the outside of downtown Tampa on the bay there. I have never been there for a hockey game, but I've heard it's fantastic. I have a buddy who didn't have a team, and he went and saw a Lightning game and was so amazed. It's basically how I became a Brewers fan, but with him as a Lightning fan. He loved the experience so much. I've been there for a couple concerts. I saw Clapton there a couple years ago. It's a great venue for concerts as well as what I'm assuming hockey. Like I said, I've never actually seen a Lightning game in person, but beautiful venue, especially given how old it is. I think it opened in 96, if not maybe a little earlier than that. But it doesn't really show its age. It's great location, great fan experience, great community that they have there in Tampa. I know Florida always gets a little flack for the way that it supports its sports teams, but Tampa has been good recently, and the fans respond really well. And I think this is also a solid A-tier venue. Oh, I'm actually tempted to put it below Dallas, though. I know I said Dallas bottom of A tier, but I'm going to put Tampa Bay bottom of A tier as well. I don't think it's quite on the level that Dallas is. Next, we have the Canadian Tire Center. So this is the Ottawa Senators. This was built, I want to say 95. I might be a few years off of that. It might actually be 90. Let me check here, because I do have National Hockey League arenas pulled up. Canadian Tire Center, 96. They started playing in the 1996 NHL season. The problem with this one is it's way outside of downtown Ottawa. Ottawa has this geography that's not really helpful towards sports teams, if that makes any sense. A lot of the teams that play in Ottawa play outside kind of that downtown area of the city. So this is way out of town. Historically, they have not been able to sell this thing out. I remember, was it the 2016 Eastern Conference Finals? The Senators played Pittsburgh, and I think it was Game 6. They couldn't even sell out Game 6 of the conference finals. The Ottawa fan base is not there anymore, and that's why, in my opinion, I think even compared to a team like Arizona, I think Ottawa is, given Gary Bettman's track record, I think Ottawa is in more danger of relocation than a team like Arizona. I think if a team were to move to Houston, it would be Ottawa. This arena isn't terrible, but it doesn't have a lot going for it with that poor fan base, poor fan reception. It's way out of town. It doesn't show its age necessarily, but it hasn't been upkept in the best ways compared to some of these other mid-90s stadiums. I don't want to put it in F tier, so I'll put it bottom of D tier, and I've never been there, so that's all I can say about that one. Next is the Centre Bell, or the Bell Center in Montreal. I've never been to Montreal. My mother has been several times, and she said that this is her favorite venue in hockey. And I'm not just trusting my mom on this one. I do know that this is one of the best venues in the NHL. It's the largest venue in the NHL, and they sell this thing out despite the product on the ice. I think the Bell Center is up there with some of the best. I mean, if not the best, and we'll come to it, it's up there with the United Center. It's up there with the TD Garden. I mean, it's huge, but the fans support it. It doesn't show its age. I think this one was also 96, but they have upkept it. They have upgraded it. They have made this one of the premier hockey venues in the NHL. I think the entire city of Montreal just are diehard for the Canadians. Like I said, despite the product on the ice, I think the size of this venue adds just that much grandeur to the Canadians as a franchise, and not every team could do that. I mean, if you had a team like Arizona playing in an arena like this, it would have the opposite effect. It would make it seem like it was such a worse hockey product because they wouldn't be able to sell it out. But Montreal is able to sell it out. Montreal is able to create this huge culture within the Bell Center, and I think for sure it sits in S tier there. Next, I believe that's Nationwide Arena in Columbus. This is another venue I have not been to. I have been past it. It's a gorgeous looking venue on the outside. It opened in the year 2000, the same year as the X, because the Minnesota Wild and the Columbus Blue Jackets were franchise partners, or what do they call them? Expansion siblings, I guess. They both started in the same year, so they both started in the year 2000. This is a great hockey venue. Despite Columbus not always being the best team, this is one of the premier venues of any type in the state of Ohio. I know, like, for concerts, this place. So I'm a huge 21 Pilots fan, right? And 21 Pilots, if you're familiar with their music or their backstory, they're from Columbus. They usually, at the end of every one of their big tours, they come home to Columbus and they sell out Nationwide Arena for usually 3 straight shows, like back to back to back. It's a great concert venue. It's a great hockey venue. The fans are super behind the Blue Jackets. The Blue Jackets have never, like I said, despite the product on the ice, they haven't really ever been in the conversation of relocation, despite how bad the team is, because the fans are so behind this team. If you don't consider soccer one of the major American sports leagues, then this is the only major American sports team in Columbus, right? Columbus is kind of built around Ohio State University, not professional sports. And so the Blue Jackets being there, the city is really behind their team through thick and thin. This is a great venue. I love that on, I almost called it an end zone. So one of the ends of the ice, you have these huge like pillars in the corner, and you see that in venues like Edmonton and Minnesota. But in Columbus, it's only on one side, and that's where you see like the cannon in one of the corners. You see architecturally, it's a very stunning venue on the inside, in my opinion. It's also got a practice facility right next door, a gorgeous practice facility built in. I think this is one of the premier venues. I won't put it S tier, but I think it has to go above what we have in A tier so far. Not a lot of bad venues that we've come across yet in the NHL here. Another premier venue for me is the PPG Paints Arena in Pittsburgh. Now, I have actually been to both PPG Paints Arena and the former Mellon Arena. And Mellon Arena was cool. That was the old Igloo, right? So this huge domed stadium, they built it for the Civic Orchestra in Pittsburgh. And then when the Penguins moved in, it became pretty much a solid hockey venue. And it was just this big cavern, huge dome on the inside. And I had the privilege of going there. I saw Martin Brodeur shut out the Penguins in, I think, 2009. It was 4-0. Jordan Stahl broke his nose in the second period. It was a fun game. But I've also been to PPG Paints Arena, and I think that if any venue had to be built perfectly to follow up Mellon Arena or the old Civic Arena, it was PPG Paints Arena. And you might know it as Consol Energy Center. That was the original name when it opened in 2010, 2011. It's a really gorgeous venue. I do have a couple gripes with it. I don't think that, so it's got this huge windowed entry area on one of the sides. You can kind of see it on this left side here. I think what they were going for with that is kind of this entry area similar to something like Yankee Stadium or Citi Field or Lambeau Field, where you have this kind of atrium off to the side. Even like the XL Energy Center has one of those big glass windowed entry areas. To me, the one at PPG Paints Arena just isn't quite big enough. It feels a little cramped, and especially as you go up the floors to like the upper deck, it's a little smaller than I would like to see in a professional venue. That's one of my huge gripes with something like Madison Square Garden, and I know that they've updated it since I've been there. This is Madison Square Garden I'm talking about. To the point where it's not as claustrophobic as it used to be. But that is my one gripe with PPG Paints Arena, is it's not quite big enough with the plot of land that they built it on. The concourses are a little constricted. But in terms of on-ice hockey product, I think the Penguins have been good, and the fans are really solid at supporting this team. It's in a great location right downtown Pittsburgh. Other than like that concourse thing, I think this is one of the premier venues in hockey as well. And I know I've been saying that about every single one of these, but this is also going A tier. I'm actually going to put it just underneath Nationwide Arena here. Next one, I believe, is the KeyBank Center in Buffalo. I think the signage on this picture here says First Niagara Center, which is a former name. You might also know it as HSBC Arena or just like Buffalo Arena. This is where the Sabres have played since 95. Let's see here. KeyBank Center. 96. A lot of these arenas opened in 1996. This is one of the ones that does show its age. If you're familiar with the interior of it, a lot of the walls are painted in this very... So it's royal blue because it's the new, ever since the Sabres changed their color scheme from navy and yellow to royal blue and yellow, they've kind of done this entire rebrand, and they painted the walls on the inside of this arena this royal blue. And I think it has the negative effect that they wanted it to have. It makes this arena feel older. It makes this arena feel almost like a minor league arena, just on a massive scale. The Sabres, I almost call them the Brewers, excuse me. The Buffalo Sabres have not been great for the last ever. I mean, I can't remember a really solid Sabres team since they were in the Stanley Cup in what, 2000, 1999. Haven't been a good product. I think if Buffalo is going to favor a sports team, it's absolutely going to be the Bills. And that's despite the fact that the Bills play out in Orchard Park. And KeyBank Arena is... KeyBank Center? Is it Center or Arena? My bad. The KeyBank Center is right smack in the middle of downtown Buffalo. I think this arena has not been upkept very, very well. It feels older. It feels like it's kind of stuck in the 90s compared to all of its like arena brethren that were built in the 90s alongside it. I'm going to put this one solid C tier. I feel like this arena shows its age a little more than it should compared to all of the other ones. Little Caesars Arena. Now, a lot of fans were pissed when the Red Wings decided to leave the Joe and move to a cooperative venue. It wasn't just Red Wing fans, it was Piston fans too. Piston fans, despite the fact that the Palace of Auburn Hills is way up north, I mean, it was one of the premier basketball venues for ages, and both teams came together to build this new arena in the heart of Detroit's sports city. It's like 2 blocks from Ford Field and Comerica Park. I think this is one of the most beautiful venues, both on the outside and the inside, in the entire NHL. A couple things. Let me see if I can pull up some pictures here and show you some examples of what I mean. So Little Caesars Arena, if you're familiar with it, it's got this huge concourse area. They basically built like an indoor mall. That's not the picture I wanted here. They basically built... Here's a picture of it for ice hockey consideration. I'll hold my thought on that mall idea. But if you go up... They have these gondola boxes. These seats here... Oh, where are we? Hello. So these seats here that are hanging, it kind of looks like it's just an upper tier. They're not. They're actually about 50 feet off the wall and hanging over the ice. And your seats are tilted. So you're basically looking out of a glass box onto the ice or onto the court if you're there for basketball. Very cool architecturally. I love that they went with an all red interior. I think it helps the Red Wings. Red Wings obviously aren't going to want to play with blue seats. And for the Pistons, there are a lot of blue teams in the NBA. And I think having those red seats really helps them stand out. But we are talking hockey. So the other... My favorite part, and almost everybody's favorite part of Little Caesars Arena is, see this bubbled section here? This is that mall area, and I don't know if there's an actual name for it necessarily, but let me see if I can find a picture of that mall area. Little Caesars Arena Concourse. So they built this massive, it almost feels like a roof over the street, but this is still inside the arena. And if my computer would load here, you'd be able to see it a little bit better. Come on. Come on. Load for me. Okay, so... Here you see a picture of it. It's this massive concourse. It's basically like the Lambeau Field atrium, where it's just... It is inside the stadium, and they have this cool, like... Uh-oh, what's happening? Just very cool, like, covered urban area feel to the inside of this arena, and it almost feels more New York than anything to me, but I think this is a very cool addition to the stadium. Here's a better view of it. You feel like you're walking down a city street, but there's no cars. You're still in the arena. I think that was an excellent architectural choice. I think I've never actually been to a game at this arena. I've been to the old Joe. That was a fun venue, and I can't imagine Detroit hockey fans have simmered. But I'm also going to put this in A tier. So this is going to go top of A tier, actually, I think. Next, we're going to go with the Garden. And the Garden, I'm going to have some hot takes on this one. So, Madison Square Garden is the world's most famous arena. I mean, that's its tagline, and it's true. I mean, you'd be hard pressed to find a more prominent arena historically in the world. It was opened in 1968. Everything from major boxing events, major concerts, like political campaigns, national conventions, basketball, hockey, you name it, it's been hosted at Madison Square Garden. This is the fourth garden. The original one was actually on Madison Square, but this one was opened at the Penn Station location where it's at now in the year 1968. It's got this very, very unique circular exterior, very, very unique circular interior with the roof that looks like it's kind of coming down into the apex of the scoreboard. This is an old picture. It's always had that very, very famous roof. I do have a lot of problems with Madison Square Garden. It does show its age. This is after the 1991 renovation. So this would have been more like when I went to it, what it would have looked like. Obviously you're not seeing any like open concourse design. You're not going to be able to build an open concourse design in a shell that is already designed like this. It's really big and not in a way that benefits it like Montreal or Chicago. It's almost detrimental to the size because what those arenas do well is the size is vertical. So you feel like you're still above the action, but you don't feel like you're too far from the action. Whereas because of the shape of Madison Square Garden, because they can't build upward, they can only build outward if they want to keep the famous roof line. It's circular, and you, especially in hockey, and basketball too, because basketball is a smaller court, but the circular shape actually benefits basketball better. But the circular shape of this arena makes it feel very, very far away from the action, and I didn't love that when I was there. I mentioned the concourses were really skinny when I was there. They have done a little bit to alleviate that. They have widened the concourses. They added a new scoreboard. They added more modern elements to make it feel a little more updated. Here's just some of those famous concerts that have taken place over the years. It is like the premier concert venue, arena-wise, in the United States. I'm tempted to put it S tier because it is Madison Square Garden, but in good faith, I can't. Based on my experiences at Madison Square Garden, I've been there a few times for Rangers games and Knicks games. I do have to put it A tier based on what I have in A tier. And actually, you know what? I might renege on this decision, but I'm going to move Tampa Bay and Dallas down to B tier. And I'm going to put Madison Square Garden top of B tier above them. And I might change my mind by the end of this list. This is based on my opinions and my experiences at Madison Square Garden. I'm putting it there. Next is the Canada Life Center. So this is the arena in Winnipeg. It opened in 2004, actually. The Jets didn't move from Atlanta until 2011. But it was opened in 2004. It's a very small venue, by far the smallest venue in the NHL. And I'm trying to remember how many it seats. Is it 14,000? Okay. It's the smallest venue in the NHL when you're not considering Mullet Arena. So Mullet Arena is by far the smallest, I should say that. But of the actual, built for professional hockey arenas in the NHL, Canada Life Center only holds 15,000, which actually isn't that much smaller than Prudential, but it feels a lot smaller than Prudential. Size-wise, it is very small. I've never been for an actual Jets game. I've just been for concerts. But it's a great venue. It just feels very small. You can feel... when you go to basketball games, to arenas that are specifically built for basketball, you can tell, obviously, right? Because the shape of the arena, the seats are very, very close. You don't have this ability to expand out and fit a hockey rink in. Canada Life Center feels like that, but somehow in a way that accompanies hockey. It's very like there's not a ton of rows going up to the concourse. There's not a ton of rows in the upper deck. It feels very compact, even for a hockey rink. But that benefits the Jets, especially in a market that part of the reason why the Jets left in the first place was they weren't making any money. And so in making a smaller arena, the Jets are able to up their ticket prices and up their concession prices, and it not negatively affect the fan base, because tickets in a smaller arena are going to be more sought after. They're going to be there's going to be more demand for them, is what I'm trying to get at here. So I actually really like Canada Life Center. I'm going to put it B tier because of the fact that it's not a premier. It was obviously built for minor league hockey in a very popular hockey town. It was built for the Manitoba Moose, and the Jets just ended up moving in, and it fits them very well. But it still does feel not quite like an NHL venue. But it's a great atmosphere. Winnipeg's a great hockey town. I'm going to put it top of B tier, right above Madison Square Garden. Next, we have PNC Arena in Raleigh. Now, this one is the same as the Canadian Tire Center in Ottawa, in that it's way out of town. A lot of away players will complain about having to play in Carolina because of the fact that when they go to the stadium, there are no options for them to do anything. Like, I can't remember who it was. It might be Paul Bissonnetti on Spitting Chicklets, but he said, like I said, it could have been him. I don't know if it actually was him, but someone said something along the lines of they dreaded playing in Raleigh because the hotels are so far from the rink, and the drive from the hotel to the rink is a pain. And once you're at the rink, despite how early you're there, like, you can't do anything around the arena. You won't be able to go get a meal somewhere or go grab a beer before the game somewhere. And I know sports players don't always do that, but hockey's a different breed. So it is way far away from downtown Raleigh. It's kind of in the middle of nowhere. There are 3 teams that description fits really well, and this is the second one we'll come across. So Ottawa, Carolina, and Florida is the other one. But in terms of the interior of the arena, they have done a decent job of keeping it updated. I remember watching, was it the 2008 All-Star Game was hosted by Carolina? Was it? No, it would have been more recent than that. It might be 11. Tell me in the comments, because I do know Carolina hosted it, and that would have been like the last time I really paid attention to the interior of PNC Arena. But it still does, like, I think this was built in 99, so of those 90s, 2000s arenas, it's one of the more recent ones. And 99. It does kind of show its age, especially on the exterior. It feels very much like an older arena. It feels very much like it was built in a time before modern stadium amenities. The fan base is great. I mean, the Carolina fan base has really attached itself in the last several years. It's the only professional sports team in Raleigh. All of the other Carolina sports teams are in Charlotte. And so they do latch on this team, similar to Columbus. But I'll put it above the Canadian Tire Center, but I still think it's solid D tier, just because it's showing its age, and it's way out of the way, and people don't like playing there. Next is a hard one for me to rank because I'm a Vancouver Canucks fan. This is Rogers Arena. This opened in, I should know this off the top of my head, I think it's 95. It is 1995. It replaced the Pacific Coliseum. It's architecturally very similar to the Pacific Coliseum. They're right next to each other, just outside of downtown Vancouver. I have never been to Vancouver. I've never actually even been to British Columbia. The furthest west I've been in Canada is Saskatchewan. And so I've never seen a game live, but I do know this stadium really well because of the fact that I am a Canucks fan. I watch a lot of games on TV. I'm familiar with the architecture of it. My biggest gripe with this arena, it does show its age a little bit, and they have done things to keep it updated. They have this cool, they paint the stairs in a way that's kind of interesting. It's got this green to blue kind of chromatic flow going up the aisle to make it feel a little more modern. It almost looks like the stairs glow. But my biggest gripe with this arena is the red seats. I have never understood the decision to have red seats in this arena. It doesn't fit. It didn't fit the Grizzlies. It hasn't fit the Canucks since the 80s, and they opened this in 1996. They still haven't changed the seats out, and it looks garish is the best word I can use to describe it. The arena looks like it doesn't fit the Canucks very well. They have these cool banners that hang from the ceiling, and I'm not talking championship banners. Obviously, the Canucks have never won a championship, so but they have these basic. It's like tapestries that come down various players. It's got this cool like translucent tapestry. I don't know how else to describe it. You'd have to look up pictures of it. There's a lot that they do to try to make this feel like an updated state arena, but in good faith, even as a Canucks fan, I can't put this higher than C tier. Genuinely, like the Canucks need to either put a lot of money to upgrade this place, starting with the seats. That would be the easiest change. Make it blue seats. That would make it feel newer. The red just looks bad. I don't want the Canucks to have a new venue necessarily. It's not even that old. It's not 30 years old yet. But I don't think the way that the arena is in its current state fits the team. And maybe it does. I mean, it kind of looks like a trashy stadium and you got a trashy team. So, but I'm going to put this top of C tier. I'll put it right above the first Niagara Center here. Next is Scotiabank Arena in Toronto. Now this, you could argue that this venue is probably the Madison Square Garden of Canada, even above the Bell Center. I mean, this is Toronto, obviously the biggest metropolitan area in Canada. This is the arena that Drake built. This is the arena that Vince built. The Weeknd, I mean, I was trying to name like a good Maple Leafs player in the last 30 years, and I just can't do it because the Maple Leafs are terrible. But opened in 1999. Historically had a very weird color scheme in the seats. It was kind of like this red, black, yellow, almost like a sunset feel, kind of like Dodger Stadium. My favorite thing about this arena is that on the ends, I almost said end zones again. On the ends, you have this very unique tiered box, like suites and boxes structure. Most of the time you'll see arenas do like their club seating and their boxes on the long sides. Scotiabank Arena, the former Air Canada Centre, has it on the ends, so behind the baskets, behind the goal nets, and it just adds this very unique architectural style that most stadiums don't have. And I almost wonder if they didn't do that for concert sakes, because then you have all of these very expensive box seats staring directly at the ends for concerts, which is kind of cool. Obviously, like I said, all of these Toronto artists that you'll see come pass through will play back-to-back nights, if not triple back-to-back-to-back nights, like Drake and The Weeknd. This, I would say, is the premier concert venue in all of Canada, but we are ranking it in terms of hockey. Now, the Maple Leafs product has not been great historically. They've made the playoffs the last several years, but usually choke in the first round. You have a solid team right now with Nylander and Marner and Matthews and Tavares, but it doesn't really go anywhere. The fans are still dedicated. Maple Leafs fans will always be dedicated. They haven't won a Stanley Cup since what? 50s, 40s? I can't actually remember the exact date, and I should off the top of my head. But I think this is absolutely A tier. I'm going to put it top of A tier. I can't, in good faith, quite put it in S tier. It doesn't have the history there as a hockey venue, but very solid arena, very solid like social atmosphere around the arena itself. It's right off of like the heart of Toronto. I love the city of Toronto to begin with, and I think this arena fits the city and the vibe of the city and the team very, very well. TD Garden. You know what? I'm going to put it above the Bell Center. This is probably the premier venue in the NHL, and I think in good faith, I have to put the United Center top. Let's talk about these back-to-back. So just to get this out of the way, let me find the United Center here. The United Center, I think, is the very top tier. But let's talk about TD Garden first of all. Right kind of in the heart off of the Common in Boston, has been home to some very successful teams. You have the Boston Bruins and the Boston Celtics having multiple titles in the last 20 years. I shouldn't say multiple for the Bruins. They only have one, but they have a very good product. I'm recording this before the playoffs. They have a very good chance of winning the Stanley Cup this year as well. The fans are crazy about this team. It's huge. It fits the team very well. It used to have yellow seats, and I have no idea how the Celtics allowed the Bruins to play with yellow seats for so long. Now those have been replaced with black seats, as is kind of the custom in most arenas nowadays. But great location, very grand Boston feel to the exterior of the stadium. Very much feels like sometimes you get these dual venues, right? Basketball and hockey, that you can tell who the favorite team is of the two, right? Boston shares these very well. And the Bruins have all of their statues, and the Celtics have all of their statues, and this feels like a very collaborative effort between the two teams. I think it fits the Bruins really well. This is a very threatening place to play. I've been there once, and it wasn't actually for a professional game. It was for a hockey showcase. My brother was playing out on the East Coast, but very cool venue. I would love to go to a Bruins game. I'm not a Bruins fan necessarily, even as a Canucks fan. Like I hate the Bruins because of what they did to my team in 2011. But I can't deny the fact that this is one of the premier hockey venues in the league. And the only reason that it's below the United Center is because the United Center is wild. The Madhouse on Madison. And I know it's no Chicago Stadium. Every fan will always tell you that. But practically built right next door, kind of in the middle of nowhere in Chicago. It's very far west outside by the airport, but the community around the arena is centered on the arena as the central venue. This is the place that Michael Jordan built. This is the place that Jonathan Toews and Patrick Kane, well, Kane's now gone, but you know exactly what I mean. They won 3 Stanley Cups? 3 Stanley Cups, right? 10, 13, 15 in this venue. I better have those dates right. I apologize. This is a tangent, but I just have to make sure that I have these dates right. This is why you are on a channel of a guy who makes spreadsheets. Have won 6 Stanley Cups since their existence. 10, 13, and 15. Okay, yeah. So they have 3 Stanley Cups in this arena. It's huge. It's got like 3 or 4 different tiers of club and box seats. The upper deck is super high, like way high above the arena floor. And a lot of people really like that because it adds this echo chamber. When the Blackhawks are good and the fans are into it, which they aren't necessarily always, especially right now, you can tell the Blackhawks product is suffering, but the fans are passionate, man. Let me tell you, Blackhawk fans are like next to none. They have sold out this place. I have no idea how many years in a row, but I think it's the most sold out venue in the NHL and has been for a very long time. This is the premier venue in all of hockey. It's loud, it's wild, it's got a culture to itself, even above the team. Very cool place to watch a game, very cool place to just tour, even if you're not there to watch a game. Next is T-Mobile. So this is the venue in Vegas, more specifically Paradise, Nevada, for the Vegas Golden Knights. It was built in 2017. I think it opened in 2016, actually. The team started in 17, but I believe this opened in 16 as kind of the home base for... Yep, 2016 opened as the home base for UFC. So most of UFC's events, specifically their pay-per-views, will take place at the T-Mobile Arena in Vegas. It's a gorgeous arena. It's very cool architecturally. One end... kind of like I mentioned, like Minnesota and Edmonton and Columbus have these kind of corner towers. T-Mobile has these platforms just kind of hanging from the ceiling, and they glow pink with the T-Mobile colors, and it adds this very like modern, futuristic feel to one end of the ice. On the other end, they have this huge mural of Vegas, kind of on the back upper wall. It's got the castle up there. It's got all of the all of the banners of the teams in the NHL, which I know isn't something that's unique to this arena, but the way that they have decorated and designed this place makes it feel very much like a Golden Knights facility. It feels very Vegas. It feels very modern medieval, if you can imagine like a combination of those two motifs there. I think this is a very, very nice venue, very good location. It's hard to find a bad location if you're on the Strip in Vegas, but they have done great work with this arena, and I think this solidly goes in A tier. I'm gonna put it above Little Caesars. Actually, I think it's that good. I think the culture there, love or hate Golden Knights fans, and most people hate Golden Knights fans, they have built a culture around this team based out of this arena that is unreal for an expansion franchise. I will say that. Next here, I don't recognize that exterior off the top of my head, so let me find it here. Give me one sec. That one is, it's Capital One Arena in DC. So, Capital One Arena is in a weird location. It's about 5 to 10 blocks east, directly east of the White House in Chinatown, which when I went there the first time, I was kind of surprised that DC had a Chinatown. But despite the weird location, and it's not a weird location because it is pretty central to DC. Like it would be hard to find a more central location to put an arena in Washington, D.C. D.C. is a weird sports town when it comes to venues. But the Capitals, especially since getting Ovechkin in the mid-2000s, have been a great on-ice product. The fan base is really behind this team. I don't have much negatives to say about this venue, but I also don't have a ton of positives to say about this venue. It's not really a standout venue, for lack of it doesn't really stand out in basketball. It doesn't really stand out in hockey. It's just kind of there, if that makes any sense. It's nice. It's not bad. But nothing about this place really pops to me. When I think of what's a cool thing about Capital One Arena, the first thing I think of is you can walk there from the White House. The fact that that's the first fact that pops up, and then I try to find a second one, and then that's the Chinatown fact, and then I try to think of a third fact, and I try to think what is something that stands out about this venue. I can't really think of one. And so despite the culture, despite the team, I have to put this bottom of B tier for what we have now. And I really want to move those back up to A tier if this is what B tier looks like, but we'll come back to that at the end of the video here. We got to start cruising a little bit. I think we're only through half of these, and we've been doing this for about an hour. So let's go to the X. The X is the arena that I've been to most. And I have to pause real quick. This picture is not Amalie Arena. That is Florida Live Arena in Sunrise. So I do apologize for that. We'll address that when we get there. The X is the arena I've been to most often. I've been to at least a dozen Wild games. I have been to probably half a dozen concerts at this venue. It's a bad concert venue. The upper deck is too steep and the sound bounces really aggressively. But for hockey, you'd be hard pressed to find a better, you know what? I'm actually going to put the X in S tier. It is the bottom of S tier. It is I think this is the only non-original six venue that I can put in S tier. Wild fans are crazy. Minnesota is the state of hockey, and it's reflected in St. Paul. The fact that this is the only, I shouldn't say only because the soccer arena is now in St. Paul as well, but this is the only sports team that plays in downtown St. Paul, and it feels different. If you're not familiar with the Twin Cities area, they always say Minneapolis is the city that you date. St. Paul is the city that you marry. It's a very they're right next door to each other, but culturally they're very different. St. Paul is more the, I shouldn't say the retiree area, but it's a very much more laid back community than Minneapolis. Minneapolis is the hustle and bustle. It's the big city. St. Paul is more this. I don't want to say it's demographically different. It is. It's more of the white, like middle class, middle aged area compared to Minneapolis is more this diverse young people. Cultural center of Minnesota. St. Paul is a little more laid back, and so the fact that the Wild fit there as the hockey team, whereas all the other teams play in Minneapolis, I think fits the team very well. It fits the culture of the team very well. This is a beautiful arena. They did great work with it. It opened almost 25 years ago, and it still doesn't feel old by any means. They have continued to update it in the proper ways. It's got this huge glass entrance area that I adore. It's got a great scoreboard, modern amenity feel. The concourses are huge. There's not much else I want to say because I want to keep this video moving just looking at the time that I have here. But I think the X is the one venue I will give S tier that's not an original 6 venue. Next is the Saddle Dome. The Saddle Dome does show its age. It was built in the 80s. I want to say 83. I know that's wrong. It was built in... Oh, I did get it right. Okay, cool. Good for me. It was built in 83. It's more of a rodeo arena than anything. The Flames do play there, and the fans love the Flames. The Sea of Red is one of the more intimidating fan bases in the NHL, but in terms of an arena, this is a weird venue. Obviously, the shape of the roof is going to affect that. It affects the sound inside the arena. It affects just the feel in comparison to other venues. And while you might think it would be a good thing to be distinct, it is almost distinct in a negative way. It is old. It shows its age. There's a reason the team has been looking for new stadium options for several years now. I think this one sits solidly at the bottom of C tier. It's in a good location. Like I said, the fan base is great, but the venue, I shouldn't say falling apart, but it is older. It's one of the older venues. I want to say, okay, so if you consider Climate Pledge Arena a new venue, because basically they gutted, we'll talk about Climate Pledge more when we get there, but I believe if you exclude Climate Pledge, the Saddle Dome is the second oldest arena in the NHL behind Madison Square Garden. Next, we do have Florida Live Arena. This is the picture that I mistook for Amalie Arena. They actually do look very similar from the side. This is in Sunrise, Florida, so it's about a, oh gosh, people in Miami could probably tell me better. I think it's close to a 45-minute drive from downtown Miami, very much out of the way. This arena is basically as far west as you can get before you hit the Everglades. Like literally, the arena is here, and then you have a highway, and then it's Everglades National Park, practically. It's way out of the way. It's not the cultural hub that Miami-Dade Arena is, where the Heat play. It's bigger, I think, than Miami Arena. Both arenas don't have sponsors at the moment that I'm recording this. So Florida Live is the hockey arena. Miami-Dade Arena, the former American Airlines Arena, is in downtown Miami. It's very much out of the way. The product has never been great. They've made the playoffs a couple times. They won the President's Trophy last season. They, in the 90s, did make was it the Eastern Conference Finals or the Stanley Cup Finals? I think it was the Stanley Cup Finals against the Avalanche. But the fans have never really... Miami fans are really hit or miss. Even like basketball is the only fan base, or the only sport that the fans in Miami have really latched onto. I mean, football doesn't really struggle, but baseball really struggles, and hockey really struggles, especially where they're at. They moved it to more of a whiter suburb of Miami to try to get those retiree fans that Arizona tries to pull in. But very much a lack of culture with this team, with this arena, in a bad location. I think this, It's probably the nicest of the D tier arenas, but I think it does have to go D tier just because of the fact that there's really nothing going on at that arena. Next is Ball Arena, or the former Pepsi Center in Denver. I love this arena. Very unique look. It's got this, it's basically a big circle, and then it's got this wing that juts out, and that's kind of this glass entry area. Similar to something like Pittsburgh or Minnesota, like we've been talking about. Just this gathering space. I have never been there for a game, but I have been there for several concerts. I saw 21 Pilots there a few years ago. I saw a Zach Brown band there a couple years ago. Very good venue, first and foremost. In terms of a hockey venue, this is one of those where when I went there, and I know Denver is a big hockey town, but I mentioned earlier in this video that sometimes you go to these dual arenas, and we'll talk about more as we there are a couple more on this list that I want to discuss. That are like this. But when I walked in, you did see gift shops and like hockey statues. But this definitely to me felt more like a Nuggets arena than it felt an Avalanche arena. It felt like the Nuggets were the priority franchise, and I don't know what the ownership necessarily looks like. I know that they're a Walton Cronkite franchise, and they own the arena, so I don't know why they would kind of shun them out of the way that I felt when I went there. And so that would be like one negative I have. I think this is a solid B tier arena. I'm going to put it, I'll put it above Amalie, actually. No, actually, I'm going to put it below Madison Square Garden and above American Airlines Center because I do really like it. And like I said, I've never been there for a game, so this is kind of me judging it in a warped way. I do really like this as a venue, and I think, like, knowing what I know about Avalanche fans, I think that this is kind of like the perfect venue for them if my opinions on what I felt about how the team is received at this arena are wrong. Does that make sense? I think this is a great arena, and I think that the Avalanche give out a good product. I think their fan base is great. That's where I'm going to put Ball Arena there. It's one of the more unique ones in the NHL. It stands out. Next is UBS Arena in Elmont, right? It's Elmont, but it's Belmont Park. It always confuses me. But this is on Long Island. This is the new venue. It opened a couple years ago for the New York Islanders. I think this is one of the best looking venues in the entire league. Let me see if I can get some pictures here of the interior of UBS Arena. Elmont, New York, Belmont Park. Yeah, that's always confusing to me. Look at the outside of this. What they did here is almost a baseball type feel. So they created this exterior that feels very classic, very like old New York, very brick, and it's green. It's I think supposed to like emulate this copper feel, early like 20th century kind of feel to it. And I love the design of it. It stands out against what are these very ultra-modern venues, something like Edmonton. This stands out very much against something like that. Let's see if we can get pictures of the interior here, though. I think this fits the Islanders perfectly. I think the Nassau Coliseum was falling apart, and when they moved to Brooklyn, they had a lot of issues because that is an arena that was built specifically for basketball. It didn't fit the Islanders at all. The culture of Brooklyn didn't fit the Islanders at all, and so moving back out to Long Island, this is an arena built for the Islanders. They fit super well in this arena. And there aren't pictures of the interior, but like I said, with that exterior, they have this very classic feel to it, and that also shows on the interior. The interior of this arena, specifically in the concourses and the bars, it's designed to give you this very like almost Prohibition era 20s, 30s New York feel. It's very classic, very of a different time, but updated with modern amenities kind of feel. Does that make any sense? So they built it to mix this classic retro feel with modern amenities, and I love that. If you've seen my baseball video, I love that they do that with a lot of baseball stadiums, and I love that the Islanders tried something new and did that with a hockey arena. So I think this is absolutely B tier. I'm tempted to put it above Madison Square Garden, but I don't know that I can. So I will put it above Ball Arena right there in B tier. Next is Climate Pledge. So Climate Pledge is an interesting venue. First of all, it's named Climate Pledge Arena, which is weird. If you're unfamiliar with that story, Amazon owns the rights to it, and they basically are they're basically greenwashing their company by naming the arena after this climate project that they've created. This arena was opened in the 60s. I want to say 61 or 62 in the fairgrounds area. So when they built the Space Needle, they also built this as the convention center. It's got this very unique roof. They did keep the unique roof from the original arena. This is where the Seattle Supersonics used to play. And when it was announced that Seattle was getting a hockey team, what they essentially did is keep the pillars and the roof, but gut everything else. This is a completely brand new arena built underneath this roof, which is very cool. It's got this cool entry area here. You see everything in front of the roof is brand new. The interior is gorgeous. It's one of the few arenas with windows on the ends. I love that. We'll talk, if I ever make a basketball video, we'll talk about Golden One Center in Sacramento, how it has the windows on the end. I do love windows in an arena. But let's see. This is what it used to look like on the inside. But like I said, they basically demolished the entire arena except for the roof. And let's see a picture of it now. Let's see. This is what it looks like now. So you have very unique double scoreboards. It's supposed to emulate like the bow of a ship, obviously with the Kraken feel. It's got the windows on the end. It almost feels a little small, just given how little seats there are on the ends here because of the windows. Excuse me. But despite the fact that it's very expensive, tickets are horrendous. I think a bottle of water costs upwards of $7 or $8. Beer, I can't even imagine how much it costs there. Seattle's a very expensive city. But I would love to see a game here. I've been outside of the stadium long ago, but I would love to visit. I've heard great things about this venue. I've heard great things about the fan base with the Kraken, and I am going to put this also in B tier. But I won't be as generous as I was with the others. I'll put it right below Ball Arena here. Next is that's Crypto.com, so the former Staples Center in LA. This is another one of those stadiums where it wasn't built for hockey. It fits a hockey team. I'm not saying like the floor plan does accommodate a hockey team. But this is one of those arenas you walk in, this is where the Lakers play, right? The Kings do play here, and the Kings have been successful, but LA is not a hockey town, and this does not fit the Kings at all. This is absolutely built for the Lakers. Even the Clippers get shunned, and part of that is just success. But the Clippers are building a whole new arena out in Inglewood. This is where the Lakers play. And sometimes the Kings play there too. I think in terms of a hockey arena, this has to go bottom of B tier, if not into C tier. It's a gorgeous venue, gorgeous arena, but when you're there, you feel out of place at a hockey game. At least that's how I felt. I've been to 2 hockey games there, and the Kings feel really out of place playing in the Lakers arena because the Lakers have been so successful in their history, tied for the most successful franchise in NBA history as of me recording this video. The Celtics could put a change to that this year. But I think this arena and the culture of LA do not fit hockey teams very well. And I have a lot of gripes with Crypto as a hockey arena. And now let's move over to the other hockey venue in LA, and that is the Honda Center. So this is one of the older arenas in the NHL, not quite on the Calgary, New York level, but let's see here. When did the Honda Center open? 1993. So it opened the same year that the Mighty Ducks started as a franchise. It's a few blocks north of Angel Stadium. It's a few blocks east of Disneyland. Anaheim is kind of in the middle of nowhere if you're familiar with Los Angeles geography. Los Angeles is a huge, very spread out city. This is a franchise that has struggled with identity. It's a franchise that struggled with fan base. If Crypto.com Arena is a bad hockey venue, culturally, then this is a bad hockey arena location-wise. This is a bad hockey arena for all of the other reasons that I've given. They can't sell it out very well. The fan base isn't super into the Ducks, especially not compared to what they used to be. I would say this is probably top of C tier, which isn't much lower than Crypto.com, but it's not a great venue. It does show its age quite a bit. They've tried to update it, but because it's that early 90s, it wasn't even during the boom period of these arenas. It was right before that. I think it shows its age, and I have to put it in C tier. Next is Mullet Arena, and this is the one that I really don't want to rank. I would give this S tier points specifically for how bizarre it is that an NHL franchise is playing in a college hockey arena that fits 5,000 people. Let me see if there is a picture of the interior of the arena on Wikipedia. Otherwise, just go look it up yourself. Here's a good picture. You have a single tier and then club seats above. So I have been to USHL arenas that are bigger than this. Very small, obviously built for the Sun Devils college hockey team, and the Coyotes are playing there possibly for 5 years while they wait for their new arena to be built in Tempe, if that project ever even gets started. As of me recording this video, I don't believe that they have even broken ground on that new stadium, so the Coyotes are trapped. They are able to sell it out because there's only 5,000 seats, and it's very expensive to go to a game, and even I say that it's sold out, look at how little people there are. Now, granted, this is before a game, so this is during warm-ups. Everybody is either outside the stadium yet or getting beer or food. I miss Glendale Arena. It still exists. My wife and I have been there a few times. My dad and my brother and I went there several times. It was Gila River Arena for the longest time, or before that it was Jobbing.com Arena. But the Glendale Arena was actually one of my favorite venues in the league. Not as a hockey arena, but just it was a very nice venue. And it bums me out that the Coyotes could never sell it out, and that Glendale is kind of a weird location for sports because it was a very nice arena and I liked going to games there. But obviously now they have moved closer to downtown Phoenix. They're in Tempe now. And just because of size, I have to put this in F tier. It's not a professional hockey arena. It's not. And I do give it style points because it's so bizarre, all of the situations surrounding it, but it's going F tier. We have 6 more, and we'll try to cruise through these. Next is the Rock, the Prudential Center in Newark. So Newark is a little out of the way of downtown New York, but it's still close enough where you can get there by train. This is one of the smaller venues in the league, but to me, when I was there, it didn't feel that small. I like the open concourse. It was one of the first arenas to really embrace that. Let's see if we can get any pictures of the inside here. One thing I do really like about the Prudential Center is they painted the roof black. And so that's part of why it doesn't feel so small. You get this very, not claustrophobic feel, but very cozy feel because of the black roof. It leaves kind of the ceiling very ambiguous. Look at, to me, that doesn't scream small. It holds about 16,000 people. And if you don't include Mullet Arena, the only arena in the league smaller than Prudential Center is Winnipeg. But I think it's a great hockey venue. I was very impressed with it. I loved it way more than I loved Madison Square Garden. We went there on the same trip. The Devils were actually good at that time. They have not been great in the last several seasons. But I think this is a great venue for hockey. I like the New Jersey fan base. I enjoyed my time here. I have nothing but positive things to say about the Prudential Center. So I am tempted to actually put it A tier. And I'm going to put it right underneath PPG Paints. Okay, so next we have Rogers Place. This is one of the more gorgeous arenas in the NHL. It's one of the more recent opening of the... Did I say Rogers Arena? I hope I said Rogers Place. There's 2 Rogers arenas. Rogers sponsors arenas. There are 2 arenas in the league that are sponsored by Rogers Communications, is what I'm trying to say here. This is Rogers Place in Edmonton. Very futuristic look on the outside, to the point where pictures of it almost to me still look like computer renderings. When this arena opened, I was looking for pictures of it, and I kept getting what looked like artist renderings of the building, and it made me really frustrated. And then I realized that's actually how the arena looks. It looks very futuristic, very clean, very unique look. I don't know if there's an over... Here's a view from above. This is when they were building it. It's got this arm that reaches over as kind of this extra entrance area and office space. Right in the heart of downtown Edmonton. They did great work with this arena. The inside is beautiful. Let me pull up this picture. Very futuristic looking. It's got these pillars in the corner that I like with something like Minnesota or Columbus, like we've talked about earlier. This has a weird filter on it, but it's a big arena, but the way that they've designed it makes it look very compact and very, I shouldn't say claustrophobic, but very much a close to the action experience. And I think they did a great job architecturally with this arena. It's a bummer that the Oilers aren't a good hockey franchise or haven't been for a very long time, but I think they did great work. This is another A-tier venue for me. I will put it above, I'll put it right below T-Mobile, above Little Caesars. Next is the SAP Center in San Jose, the former Compaq Center, the former HP Pavilion. I have been here, and in my opinion, this is a very dull venue. This opened in 1993, so it is a lot older than most arenas. It actually looks a bit newer than some of those from that era, but on the inside, it really shows its age. It's got this gray seating configuration. Let me see if I can get a better picture. SAP Center. It's got this gray seat configuration that feels really weird. I would like it way better if it had teal seats, and it just doesn't. Ignore that picture because that's a tarp. Let me see if I can get a better picture of the inside when there are no fans. They have actually updated it. So it's got this unique striped pattern between gray and black seats, which is kind of cool. But the inside of the stadium, I mentioned I liked Prudential painted their ceiling. This is a very dull gray ceiling, and it feels really empty or cavernous when you're inside of it. It feels old. When I was there, you could tell that it was an older arena, and as much as they try to update it, the architecture of the stadium doesn't allow them to ignore the age, if that makes any sense. I was not very impressed with it when I was there. The Sharks have been a good franchise in the last several years, but in terms of a hockey venue, I was not impressed with this place. I have to put it D tier as well. I'm gonna put it top of D tier. I'll be nice, but I'm still gonna put it D tier. And then next, what is that one there? I don't recognize that picture. Give me a sec. Next on our list is going to be... Please enjoy my noises that I'm making here. That is, the Enterprise Center in St. Louis. This is another venue very much like the KeyBank Center in Buffalo. They feel very similar. I think this one opened in 1994, so it's right at the start of the 90s arena boom. Not gorgeous to look at on the outside, nothing spectacular on the inside. I feel about the Enterprise Center kind of the same way I do about Capital One Arena, where it's just nothing stands out about it, but it has the added detriment that it is older. And so I think this one is going to sit. It doesn't have that ugly blue interior the way that Buffalo does. I'm going to put it right above Buffalo, but I think it solidly sits in C tier. There's just nothing spectacular about it. I was not very impressed with it when I went there. It doesn't stand out by any means, and it's older. That's kind of all I have to say about it. Next is the Wells Fargo Center in Philadelphia. Now, this is one of those weird stadiums where, much like Buffalo, The I would actually argue that Wells Fargo Center feels more like a hockey venue than it does a basketball venue. I kind of always forget that the 76ers play there as well. Everything about Wells Fargo Center screams Philadelphia Flyers to me. This is very much a hockey venue. The fans in Philadelphia are passionate about the 76ers, but to me, when I was there, very much more passionate about the Flyers. The Flyers fans are intense. Philadelphia fans in general are intense, but the Flyers are crazy. Gritty is my wife's favorite thing in the world. She loves the Flyers because Gritty is her favorite mascot. This one is older. I think it's also 1996, but it's one of the premier venues in the NHL, I think, because the Flyers are just such an intense franchise, a unique fan base. I don't have anything spectacular to say about the arena architecturally. It does feel a little older. I'll put it A tier, and I'm going to put it above Nationwide, but I'll keep it below Little Caesars. But very good venue for the... I know a lot of fans in the 90s were frustrated that they left the Spectrum, despite the fact that the Spectrum was very old, aged out, and then they moved into here. Well, now the age issue, it shouldn't be an issue because age benefits a franchise like the Flyers. Does that make any sense? So the Flyers feel like a very old fan base, like a very historical fan base, which they're not necessarily compared to like the original six. They were founded in 1967, so they are older, but not in a historical hockey sense. And age in their arenas benefits the team, and the team and the fan base fit this arena very well. It feels like a Flyers arena, and I like it. Last but not least is Bridgestone Arena in Nashville. This is one I've got very distinct different opinions about. I think this arena is one of the more unique looking arenas in the NHL. It's right smack in downtown Nashville. You could not get more center in Nashville for this arena. It's got the unique communications tower on one end. It looks like a spaceship just kind of landed. The interior is unique because when I say I like these corner pillars that some of the other arenas have, I'm talking about like actual structure, building, architectural pieces in the corners. Bridgestone Arena has like actual column pillars on one end behind the goal nets. And it adds a very weird feel to the arena. It feels older, but because of like them updating the color scheme on the team in the year 2012, it's a very weird mix of elements. It feels modern, it feels updated, it feels very Nashville, but it also feels older in this bizarre contrasting way. It's got way too much signage on the inside. It's overly advertised on the inside. The architecture of the stadium is weird in a way that like sometimes it's hard to find your seats based on where the exits are going into the concourse, because it's not really an open concept concourse. I don't know how well to describe this to you unless you've been there. A very cool venue. I think it sits solid mid-bottom of B tier. I'm going to put it below Amalie. I would say of the venues that I like with distinct elements, this is the lowest of them. And so I'm putting it right above something like Washington and something like Los Angeles. Very unique stadium, very much feels like a Predators arena, but is starting to show its age in the way that those mid-90s stadiums are. It was built in 98, so it's one of the newer of those 90s arenas. Very unique venue, very, very much a Nashville arena, but I think it solidly sits where I've put it there. So with that being said, we've come to the end of the video. Thank you if you've watched the entire video for sticking to the end. Let's just go bottom to top. I'm looking at the tiers here, and I think I'm comfortable with where I've placed things. I know that we started with these ones in A tier, but the more I think about it, I think they do fit where they are in the B tier. I want to clarify, like, I think everything above Nashville is top of B tier, and everything Nashville and below sits in that bottom of B tier area, despite like the size differential in the B tier. But from bottom to top, here's where we stand with all 32 NHL venues. F tier, I have Mullet Arena. It's just too small. It's not a professional hockey arena. It's fascinating. It's cool. It's bizarre that a team is playing there. It's a nice venue. It's a great college hockey venue. Not a great NHL arena. It's sitting F tier. D tier, bottom to top, we have Ottawa, the Canadian Tire Center. It's old, it's out of place. It's joined above that by PNC Arena, Florida Live Arena in Sunrise, and the SAP Center in San Jose. Then we go to C tier, bottom to top, we have Calgary, the Saddle Dome, the KeyBank Center in Buffalo, which I keep calling KeyBank Arena, and I'm pretty sure it's KeyBank Center. Let me just double check, because I know I've been calling it wrong the entire video. KeyBank Center in Buffalo. Above that is Enterprise Center in St. Louis. Above that, my pride and glory, Rogers Arena in Vancouver. Above that, the Honda Center in Anaheim. B tier, bottom of B tier, we have Crypto.com Arena in Los Angeles. Capital One Arena in Washington, Bridgestone Arena in Nashville, Amalie Arena in Tampa, American Airlines Center in Dallas, Climate Pledge Arena in Seattle, Ball Arena in Denver, UBS Arena in Elmont, Long Island. Madison Square Garden is top of B tier, but the very top of B tier is the former MTS Center, now known as Canada Life Center in Winnipeg. Then we move A tier. I have Prudential Center, bottom of A tier, just based on my experiences there. I know some people do have negative feelings about it, that it's starting to show its age. I did go there about 10 years ago, but for me, I was impressed. I think it's an A tier arena. Above that, PPG Paints Arena in Pittsburgh. Then we have Nationwide Arena in Columbus, Wells Fargo Center in Philadelphia, Little Caesars Arena in Detroit, Rogers Place in Edmonton, T-Mobile Arena in Vegas, and top of A tier, we have Scotiabank Arena in Toronto. And then we move up to S tier. I have 4 venues in S tier. At the bottom of S tier, this is my hot take. I love this venue. This is the XL Energy Center in St. Paul, Minnesota. Then we move up to Le Centre Bell in Montreal, the Bell Center for the Montreal Canadiens, then the TD Garden in Boston, and very top S-tier hockey. I think the best arena in the NHL based on my experiences and my knowledge about all of these arenas, the United Center in Chicago. So let me know what you think. If you agree or disagree, let me know in the comments below. We have other hockey-related videos ahead of our hockey live stream coming up on Monday. Over my left shoulder, that's your bottom right corner. Find our hockey playlist there. And then we got links to this channel and all of my other channels above my head. So go check those out. In the meantime, we will see you very, very soon.